In 1945, the world exhaled. After years of global conflict, the guns fell silent, and millions of soldiers, sailors, and airmen began the long journey home. They returned not to the world they had left, but to a nation transformed by the very war they had fought. The United States emerged from World War II as the planet's undisputed industrial and economic superpower, its factories humming and its spirit optimistic. A generation that had sacrificed so much was now ready to claim its reward. This was the dawn of an unprecedented era of prosperity, a seismic shift that would reshape the American landscape and the very definition of the American dream. To understand the explosion of consumption that was about to happen, one must first remember the years of scarcity. The war effort had demanded total mobilization. On the home front, life was defined by limits. Rationing was a daily reality, with government-issued books dictating how much sugar, coffee, meat, gasoline, and rubber a family could buy. For years, Americans had been told to conserve, to sacrifice, to put the needs of the war machine above their own desires. New cars for civilians hadn't been produced since 1942. The message was clear. Personal wants were secondary to national survival. But beneath the surface of patriotic sacrifice, a powerful economic force was building. Pent-up demand. Millions of Americans had worked in war industries, earning steady wages with little to spend them on. They had saved their money, buying war bonds and dreaming of the day they could finally buy a new car, a new house, or a new refrigerator. When the war ended, the floodgates opened. The same industrial behemoth that had produced nearly 300,000 aircraft and 100,000 tanks, the arsenal of democracy, now pivoted with breathtaking speed. Factories that built tanks now made cars and TVs. Plants that assembled bombers now churned out washing machines and vacuum cleaners. Welcome to the golden age of stuff. This explosion of production was met with an explosion of purchasing power, thanks in large part to one of the most transformative pieces of legislation in American history, the Servicemen's Readjustment Act of 1944, better known as the GI Bill. Fearing a return to the mass unemployment of the Great Depression, lawmakers created a comprehensive benefits package for the 16 million returning veterans. It provided money for college or vocational training, unemployment pay, and most crucially, low-interest, zero-down payment home loans guaranteed by the federal government. It was a revolutionary investment in human capital, designed to build a stable, educated, and prosperous middle class. And nothing symbolized the impact of the GI Bill more than the rise of the suburbs. Before the war, only 40% of Americans owned their own homes. The GI Bill made home ownership accessible to millions for the first time. Developers like William Levitt applied the mass production techniques of the assembly line to housing. On former potato fields in Long Island, New York, Levittown rose from the ground, a planned community of over 17,000 identical affordable homes. Using a 27-step assembly process, crews could finish a house every 16 minutes. Fueled by the GI Bill, the American dream took shape in these sprawling new communities of cookie-cutter houses, manicured lawns, and winding streets. This new suburban life was more than just a place to live. It was a complete lifestyle package. For a generation that had grown up with the uncertainty of the Depression and the trauma of war, the suburb offered a powerful vision of security, privacy, and normalcy. Each identical house was a self-contained kingdom, a stark contrast to the crowded multi-family tenements of the city. The single-family home became the ultimate symbol of success, and it needed to be filled. The car in the driveway, the television in the living room, the refrigerator in the kitchen, these weren't just conveniences, they were markers of status and belonging. A generation raised on scarcity now craved convenience and found belonging through ownership. In these new homogeneous communities, fitting in was paramount, and fitting in often meant having what your neighbors had. If the family next door bought a new Chevrolet, the pressure was on to get one too. If the family across the street got a television set, it quickly became a neighborhood necessity. The home was no longer just a shelter, it was a theater for consumption, a stage upon which the drama of the new American middle-class life would be performed. This relentless pursuit of more became the engine of the post-war economy, setting the stage for a culture of abundance that would define America for decades to come. The wartime factories, once churning out tanks and planes, had been retooled for peace. Now they were unleashing a torrent of consumer goods unlike anything the world had ever seen. At the heart of this new abundance was a simple, powerful force: electricity. The hum of the modern age was the hum of the appliance. Suddenly, every corner of the American home was a candidate for reinvention. The drudgery of the past was to be swept away by a wave of mechanization, promising a future of leisure and convenience. Nowhere was this transformation more profound than in the kitchen. For generations, the icebox had been a staple, its effectiveness dependent on a block of melting ice and a daily visit from the iceman. But now, it was being replaced by the electric refrigerator. This wasn't just a colder box, it was a revolution in a sleek, enamel-coated package. By the mid-1950s, over 96% of American households owned one. This single appliance changed everything: how families shopped, what they ate, and how they managed their time. The rise of frozen foods and the iconic TV dinner were direct results of its widespread adoption. Alongside it came the automatic dishwasher, promising to end the nightly ritual of washing up. Advertisements depicted glamorous housewives, freed from the sink, able to spend more time with their families. The automatic washing machine similarly vowed to liberate women from the back-breaking labor of laundry day. While the reality was often that these labor-saving devices simply raised the standards of household cleanliness, the dream they sold was intoxicating. Beyond the kitchen, the living room was being redefined by a single mesmerizing piece of furniture: the television set. In 1950, a TV was a rare luxury, found in less than 10% of American homes. A mere decade later, that number had skyrocketed to nearly 90%. It was the fastest adoption of any technology in history. The television was more than just an appliance. It was a new hearth, a focal point around which the family now gathered. It piped in news, entertainment, and a carefully curated vision of the American dream, night after night. It homogenized culture, creating shared experiences on a national scale. For the first time, families in California and New York could be watching the exact same episode of I Love Lucy, laughing at the exact same moment. And if the home was the castle, the automobile was the chariot. Post-war cars were an entirely different species from their pre-war ancestors. They were no longer just utilitarian vehicles for getting from point A to point B. They were extravagant, chrome-plated status symbols, rolling sculptures that announced one's arrival in the middle class. Designers in Detroit, fueled by boundless optimism, adorned their creations with dramatic tail fins inspired by jet fighters, acres of gleaming chrome, and dazzling two-tone paint jobs. A Cadillac Eldorado or a Chevrolet Bel Air wasn't just a car. It was a statement of prosperity and a tangible piece of the American dream. This newfound mobility, powered by cheap gasoline and the massive undertaking of the 1956 interstate highway system, fundamentally reshaped the landscape. It fueled the exodus to the suburbs, created the daily commute, and gave birth to a whole new culture of drive-in movies, roadside motels, and family road trips. But how do you convince millions of people that they not only want, but all of these new things? This tidal wave of goods required an equally powerful engine of desire. To sell it all, the advertising industry entered its golden age. On Madison Avenue in New York City, a new generation of ad men were honing the art of persuasion. They weren't just listing product features, they were tapping into the deepest anxieties and aspirations of the post-war consumer. They were selling happiness, social status, and belonging. The glossy pages of magazines and were filled with vibrant, idyllic scenes of happy families enjoying their new products. The copy promised that a new refrigerator could make you a better mother, or the right car could make you the envy of your neighbors. But print was quickly being overshadowed. The most potent tool in the advertiser's arsenal was the new mass medium that was now sitting in the center of the nation's living rooms. Television became their most powerful weapon. It was an unprecedented sales machine, combining sight, sound, and motion to beam a vision of the good life directly into millions of homes. Early television was built around sponsorship. It wasn't a 30-second spot. Entire programs like the Colgate Comedy Hour or Kraft Television Theater were extensions of the brand. The products were seamlessly woven into the entertainment, demonstrated by trusted hosts and beloved celebrities. These commercials delivered a consistent, powerful message. Consumption was the pathway to fulfillment. The good life wasn't just something to aspire to, it was something you could buy. One appliance, one car, one product at a time. This constant persuasive broadcast helped forge a new national identity, one built around the shared act of being a consumer. The new prosperity wasn't just economic, it was cultural. And with this wave of abundance came an equally powerful tide of conformity. In the sprawling new suburbs, where identical houses stood in neat rows, a new social contract was being written. To be a good American, a good citizen, was to be a good consumer. The pressure wasn't overt, not a command from on high, but a subtle, pervasive expectation woven into the fabric of daily life. It was the quiet hum of your neighbor's new lawnmower, the gleam of the latest Chevrolet in their driveway, the flicker of the same television shows through their picture window. This was the era of keeping, a phrase that perfectly captured the blend of aspiration and anxiety. The Joneses weren't a specific family, they were a collective ideal, a moving target of material success constantly being updated by the engines of industry and advertising. Falling behind wasn't just an economic failure, it was a social one. It suggested you weren't fully participating in the American dream. At the heart of this new monoculture was the television. By 1960, nearly 90% of American households owned a TV set, a device that had been a rare luxury just a decade earlier. This glowing box became the central hearth of the modern home, piping a standardized version of reality directly into millions of living rooms. Shows like Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, and The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet presented a vision of the perfect American family, stable, prosperous, white, and living in the suburbs. The problems they faced were minor, always resolved within 22 minutes, reinforcing a sense of order and predictability. There was little room in this televised world for diversity, dissent, or the complex realities of life outside this narrow frame. Everyone was watching the same stories, laughing at the same jokes from comedians like Milton Berle, and humming the same jingles. This created a powerful, shared cultural vocabulary. But it also meant that alternative viewpoints and lifestyles were rendered invisible, pushed to the margins of society. The world seen on TV became the world that was, or at least, the world that be. This cultural conformity was mirrored in the material world. Mass production meant mass consumption of identical goods. Your family drank Coca-Cola, just like the family next door. You ate Kellogg's cornflakes for breakfast, from a box that looked the same in Maine as it did in California. The family car was likely a Ford, a Chevy, or a Plymouth, its tail fins a testament to the year's fashionable design. The wardrobe of the nation also became more uniform. For men, the grey flannel suit was the unofficial uniform of the corporate world, a symbol of respectable ambition. For women, the idealized role of the happy homemaker was reinforced by fashion. Full-skirted dresses for social occasions and practical yet stylish shirt dresses and aprons for the home. Even the rebellion of youth had its uniform. The teenager, a newly identified and powerful consumer demographic, adopted a look of blue jeans, white t-shirts and leather jackets, inspired by icons like James Dean and Marlon Brando. It was a rebellion, yes, but a rebellion you could buy into. This was, without a doubt, the golden age of stuff, a time of unprecedented plenty, where the anxieties of scarcity that had defined the Depression and war years were washed away in a flood of consumer goods. Warehouses and department stores overflowed with products, their sheer volume a testament to America's industrial might. For millions, this abundance was a dream made real. It meant comfort, security, and a tangible measure of success. But this golden age had a hidden cost. In the rush to acquire, the value of individuality began to fade. The unique, the eccentric, the handmade, these were relics of a past defined by necessity. The future was about the new, the shiny, the mass-produced. This era created the blueprint for modern consumer society, a system where abundance became the new normal, and the desire for more became a permanent feature of the cultural landscape. Looking back, we can see the subtle cracks forming in this gleaming facade of post-war optimism. The very symbols of freedom and prosperity began to show their darker side. The automobile, which promised personal liberty and access to the open road, led to clogged highways and the first whispers of urban smog. The endless rows of suburban houses, each a private castle, began to feel isolating, severing the community bonds of older, denser neighborhoods. The engine of mass production, celebrated for its efficiency, also ran on a principle that would have profound consequences: planned obsolescence. Products weren't just designed to be used, they were designed to be replaced. Cars were given cosmetic updates each year to make last year's model feel dated. Appliances were built with a limited lifespan, ensuring a steady stream of future sales. This philosophy, born in the 1950s, institutionalized waste and set the stage for the throwaway culture that would follow. The legacy of this era is therefore complex and contradictory. It delivered a standard of living to a broader segment of the population than ever before in human history. It democratized comfort and convenience, transforming daily life with technologies that saved labor and time. The 1950s laid the foundation for the world of plenty that many in the developed world now take for granted. The expectation that stores will always be full, that new products will always be available, that our lives should be one of continuous material improvement. This is the enduring inheritance of the post-war boom. But it also bequeathed us a culture of excess. The line between abundance and overconsumption, once clear, began to blur. The pursuit of happiness became inextricably linked with the pursuit of possessions. This relentless cycle of desire, acquisition, and disposal began to exert a heavy toll, not just on the environment, but on the human psyche. The pressure to conform, to consume, to constantly measure one's worth through material goods created a new kind of anxiety, one that lingered even when the refrigerator was full and the garage had 2 cars. The world of perfect lawns and gleaming chrome was a carefully constructed reality, and like all such constructions, it was fragile. It was a time of plenty, but for many, it was also a time of scarce individuality. Soon, that abundance would swell into an undeniable excess, and the very foundations of this consumer paradise would be challenged. Beneath the placid surface of conformity, a countercurrent was gathering force. A new generation, born into this world of unprecedented prosperity, was beginning to ask uncomfortable questions. They questioned the wars fought to protect this way of life, the social inequalities it ignored, and the spiritual emptiness they felt amidst all the material wealth. The backlash was coming, and when it arrived, it would shatter the quiet uniformity of the 1950s, ushering in an era of turmoil, protest, and radical change. The age of Aquarius was about to dawn, and it would be anything but uniform. In the 1960s and 70s, the tide of advertising and abundance took a new turn. Products no longer just filled homes. They promised rebellion, freedom, and self-expression. Coming up is the lifestyle marketing and the explosion of choice.